Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Robot Revolution podcast, where I speak with users and creators of everyday automation. I'm your host, Mitch Tolson, and today I have a very special guest, Mike Bell, CEO of Miso Robotics. Not only is he a great leader in the robotics space, but he's also an Ally partner and all around just great guy. Mike, welcome.
Thank you, Mitch. Appreciate it. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So before we dig in, let's start with Mike, just you introducing yourself, sharing a little bit about how you got started in robotics.
Sure. I got pulled into robotics from the restaurant technology space. So I've been helping run tech companies my whole career. And most recently, for that last decade or so, I've been specifically focused on restaurant technology. Enter Miso Robotics. I was pulled into the Miso Robotics board, and as the company began to really grow and take off, I stepped into the CEO role about 2.5 years ago. It's been a wild ride ever since.
You and I have been working together for a few years now,
Yeah.
and I've certainly enjoyed this journey, and I wanted to give this opportunity for our audience to kind of listen and hear what you have to say in this space. Certainly, I feel that when I think about robotics and scale, there's really no other market or industry that can top restaurant automation and this opportunity you're facing. So certainly looking at digging in. When I look at some numbers, just by the numbers, the restaurant industry all up, as of January 2023, there's over a 1.5 million job deficit from pre-pandemic levels. And that's beyond any other industry out there, as well as we're seeing across the segment, these restaurant operators and owners, the majority of them are looking to implement some form of automation in the next 2 to 3 years. And what I see is Miso is in the forefront and ahead of all of this. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So,
yeah,
Mike,
thank you. I'm as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot to talk about, and we can dive into every one of those points.
Awesome. So let's take a moment to talk about Miso. Just can you give myself and our audience and all up, what is Miso about? What are you guys doing?
Sure. We are about 120 people, and over 100 of those are engineers. We're headquartered in Pasadena, California. We've been in business for over 6 years. So during that entire time, we've been heads down in heavy R&D mode. Mitch, we've put over $100 million into building out this really deep and broad tech stack that has got technologies pointed specifically at solving problems in the restaurant industry back of house. Last year, we rounded the corner and began entering a phase of commercializing all the technology that we've been building for so long. So we began installing robots in live restaurants, late 2021, early 2022, and have learned a lot since then. And we're really in a phase right now where we're starting to scale up and go from kind of doing one a month to one a week to soon 2 a week and then 3 a week and more. And so we're off and running in solving this problem for the industry.
That's awesome. This is definitely a challenging time for a lot of robotic industries, from the early R&D phase and then the inflection into scale. And what I see working with Miso is you're doing a lot of the right things to get to that scale. So the kind of top level question though is, Miso could go after any type of problem. Why restaurants?
Yeah, it's an important question. The short answer is that the restaurant industry has been massively overlooked. It's really been neglected by some technology steps that the rest of the world has enjoyed. Let me give you some data points that you might find very interesting. The warehouse and logistics industry has roughly a 20% penetration of robots and automation. So, 2 out of 10 have some form of automation.
Right.
And in this section of the robotics industry has approximately $10–15 billion poured into it in terms of investment into companies that solve labor problems in the warehouse industry. Okay. So take that and set that aside. Let's take a look and one more thing on that before we set it aside. The total labor pool represented by the warehouse and automation industry is 0.8% of the U.S. labor pool. So it's a little less than 1%. Okay. And that's kind of a proxy, Mitch, for what the total market is if you just kind of look at labor.
Yeah.
Okay. So then when you turn the page and look at the restaurant industry, the restaurant industry has had just a couple $100 million invested into robotics and automation. And there's far less than 1% of restaurants that have adopted robotics, yet it represents 10% of the US workforce. Okay. So there's
Wow.
this crazy imbalance where the world is kind of over indexed in technology and in robotic technology for warehouse and other industries.
Mm-hmm,
And it's really early days in what is an industry that is, factually 12 times bigger than even the warehouse industry. So for us, it's an enormous playing field.
That's incredible. So why now though? Like what's kind of changed? If is there been mindset shift or what's going on there?
Yeah, well, the short answer is that the restaurant industry, they got the memo. Okay, so this problem pre-existed the pandemic. You heard about, labor shortage and was kind of always there. The pandemic exacerbated this trend, and then when you kind of fast forward to today, it's all over. Just the big labor gap between the number of positions that are vacant and the number of people that actually want those positions. It's just a gap that is only growing bigger. Mitch, there's no one who can set forth any credible idea on how that's going to get solved
Mm.
other than robotics and automation. There's just no
Mm-hmm.
real scenario where 1.5 million people suddenly return to these jobs and are happy doing so. And so all eyes are on us to solve this problem. And in this, it's a gargantuan problem, and it's a societal problem. And again, it's over to us and other technology companies to fix it.
So if these restaurant owners are struggling to hire people to fill the different roles within the restaurant, what are kind of these bigger opportunities within a restaurant to go automate?
Yeah, yeah. So given the breadth and capabilities of the technology that we develop, it's very important for Miso to have a focused and disciplined approach in answering the question, what do we do with it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
My team and I have identified 27 discrete opportunities for automation back of house, meaning we can pull up and look in the back of any typical fast food restaurant, and we can point out 27 opportunities or tasks
Mm-hmm.
that will ultimately be machine work. Now, we may not be able to predict when, it could be 2 years, 5 years, 8 years, but pretty easy to look at and go, okay, that is not ultimately going to be done by a human being. Frying food is kind of the obvious example. So when we looked at that list of kind of 27 opportunities, it was a bit of a calculation to say, okay, what is the biggest problem that we can solve most easily? That's going to make the biggest impact. A lot of robotics companies or technology companies, they start at the quick and easy thing first, and then they kind of grow into the big hard thing. Miso, we started with the big hard thing. Putting a robotic station over a series of fryers and programming an arm to work in that crazy, hectic, busy, inconsistent environment.
Yeah.
It's a tough job. It calls on a lot of different technology disciplines to work together, and it takes a lot of time and money and a lot of very smart people to get all this technology to work together. So if you and I would have spoken about this, 3 or 4 years ago, it was all promise. It was all this stuff that we
Right.
theoretically think we could do, and it was all kind of under construction. We're in a really exciting time right now because we're solving the problem real time for customers, restaurant customers. And as we're sitting here talking, there are robots cooking food that people are eating at this moment. Problem is, there's just not enough of them yet.
And so Miso does more than just over the fry station. What else do you guys do?
So we have one product that is in the market, and that's Flippy. That's our overhead robot on a rail fry station. And Flippy's gotten a ton of attention and press. He's a bit of a social media phenomenon. He's been on Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel, and we're Mad Money, et cetera. So we're most well known for that product, and that's the only one that's in market today. The other 3 products are in late stage development. One of them is a little brother to Flippy. It's called Chippy. It makes chips for Chipotle.
Mm.
We're in a live restaurant today in California, but we're not commercially scaling that one yet. We'll do that very soon. We have a product called Sippy. Sorry, they all rhyme. Well, not my decision. Sippy, as you might guess, an automated drink dispensing machine coming out later this year. And then the last one is it's an observation system. Think of a robot without the arm.
Okay.
All the intelligence and all the analytics and all the computer vision abilities pointed at a problem in a restaurant. For us, it's called Cook Right as a product, and we're pointed at the coffee station, working closely with Panera to help them gain insights and serve better coffee.
Awesome. So you talked about scale, and so now I want to focus more on Flippy, right? And you're scaling this. So you're deploying this, and customers are using the system. What are they saying?
Okay, so there's an arc, Mitch, that goes on. So when a restaurant staff, like a team, learns that a robot is going to be installed, we get a lot of data that's anecdotal, but we also pull them and survey them and kind of what, there is trepidation. People kind of expect this robot to be humanoid and, what's it going to be like and is it nice? And so there's willingness because they live with the problem every day of people calling out and that station's not, staffed.
Yeah.
So they're happy to have the help, but they have a little bit of trepidation. Fast forward to a few days after we install. They generally have given the robot its own name. They have often voted to be the most favorite employee. And when someone comes in and asks them how they like Flippy, one of the first things you'll hear is, if anyone ever comes and tries to take this out of here, like over my dead body, because it takes over a pretty nasty, or just a difficult task, a station that's dirty and hard and hot and very noisy. It makes it quiet. It makes it faster. It makes it, the food is cooked more precisely, very much more reliably than a human being. And the punch and the climax of the story is it does it less expensively than human. So we get a lot. We talk to restaurant operators like, what's the catch? And it's not. It's just the nature of technology being rolled out today.
So what's that kind of one, elevator pitch statement of, if let's say I'm a restaurant owner, why should I bring in Flippy into my restaurant, my operation?
Well, a lot of them don't need convincing because they're calling us. A typical restaurant has capacity, depending on the size and a lot of variables, for maybe 13 or 15 people at peak period. They just can't fit any more bodies in there. Okay.
Yeah.
If they've got 2 or 3 or 4 empty positions, the line for the drive-through is long. The wait for the food in front is long, and the people are having a really tough time working there. They feel the pain, and the restaurants feel it. The restaurant owners or operators feel it. They can't hit their potential revenue because they just are not producing enough food. So the pain is acute and is really well known. I mentioned we have 120 people. We have no salespeople. Like, all the demand is inbound, and it's all the brands you know of and many, many, many that you don't know of that are in line for a pilot with us.
Awesome. So let's dive into the tech a little bit. Like, for Flippy, what are kind of these high level components? What are you putting in this thing? What makes it work, right? The secret sauce, if you will.
Yeah. Like, to explain it in the most basic kind of layman's terms, it's this white frame with a rail overhead. So it installs over a restaurant's fryers. They don't have to change out anything. We install it roughly overnight, this overhead frame. Then we hang a robotic arm on this frame, and that's central to the whole technology and how it works. There are cameras and a computer that phone home and kind of direct all this together. There's a freezer that dispenses fries on one side, and then there's a holding station on the other side. We turn it on, it takes over the entire fry function. The only thing left is a human being needs to put them in a bag and hand them to another human being. So that whole cook station is taken over by this technology. To make all the technology work, Mitch, and you know this more than almost any human on earth, at a very detailed level, but it's a combination of computer vision, letting the arm know where it is physically in space. Yep. It's a combination of planning. What is the Cirque du Soleil motions and movements that are most efficient? And then there's a lot of compute that basically plans and sequences this robot station to do the right thing in the right order so that it's not busy and that it's faster and doesn't overcook food and is not, busy holding a basket when a basket needs to come out to be, so it doesn't be overcooked. So there's quite a lot of algorithm work that goes on to make sure that the thing operates at peak efficiency. We plug it in, we turn it on, we train staff in about an hour. We're done early. We repeat ourselves a lot. It just kind of takes over and does what it needs to do.
That's what scale's about, right?
Yeah.
So to ask a question I asked you, man, it's been a few years now. It was, so as a mechanical engineer myself, right? I said, well, why are you using a robot arm? Why not, use conveyance systems and things like that you see in high throughput manufacturing type of scenarios? Yeah. Why this approach? And I really liked your answer back then. So what was that?
Well, I hope I get it right. I don't remember it, but it's a thoughtful question. It's a question we get a lot. Yeah. When you pull back, you can search on YouTube and you can find videos of McDonald's testing a fry robot. Well, here's the story. It was not a robot. It was a glorified conveyor system that moves a basket from one point to the other. Oh, that's great. Super efficient, works great, whatever, except when something breaks. It does not have or when it just doesn't do what it's meant to do. Pure automation or a conveyor system doesn't have the intelligence to adapt, to adjust, to self-correct, to re-grab a basket if it misses it, to know if it doesn't grab the basket, and it has the ability to handle a much broader variety of tasks. And so we look at it as kind of future-proofing what we're building, and it allows the robot arm. It allows it to do so many things with this fry station, but it also allows it to extend beyond the fry station. So the same technology architecture, both physical and software, can extend to sandwich prep or pizza making or kind of anything else. Is that what I told you last time?
That is, and there's one other part, and so I'll kind of cue you up a little bit. You said you told me the number of restaurants that already exist out there in the market, like in the world today, and then you said the amount of capital that they've already installed within the restaurant, and the cost to pull that out and put in this purpose-built machine. So maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah. So the restaurant equipment, because it's made to work where it's made to work, is durable and it's expensive and it lasts a long time. Like some fryers are spec'd to last 13 years. This is capital that's invested either from a corporation or from a franchisee, just a proprietor, a business owner. We realized to succeed, we couldn't go in and say, hey, here's robotics, but you got to rip out all that perfectly good equipment that they're still paying for and kind of start over. So it's very important for us to work with existing equipment in an existing environment without taking, requiring a construction project. It allows for much greater penetration of the industry. Certain chains open like 250, like Chipotle, for example, their aim is to open around 250 stores a year. So that's like almost one a day. Some robotics companies say, hey, we're just going to get spec'd into those designs, and that's going to be our available market. Well, Chipotle has about 3,000 restaurants plus. And so I look at it as a business person saying, you just can't ignore those. Like you can't ignore kind of the big book. These equipment stays around for a long time, but so do the buildings themselves, So it's a big, juicy market we want to go after.
I often am coaching people on when they're looking at how do they target their market. I think about a now, soon, and later framing. What is available right now, and you can go build a business off of, and then how does that architecture design support the kind of future and growth and scale long term? So I think that Miso's doing exactly right. You're addressing the immediate need to help this industry really revolutionize how they're operating.
Yeah, I think you're right on. I think it's a balancing act for us where you have to think long term because we're going to be penetrating restaurants with robots for 10 or 20 years. Like it's just it's a big job. But also we know we've got to rack up wins and start establishing the company in these early days as actually onto something, and we have to start generating revenue and cash flow like any business.
Right.
And so it's this balancing act of saying think really long term and take the long game because this is a big play. But also we're here and now. We got to start racking up some wins.
So you mentioned let's pivot to a little bit more of why Ally Robotics is involved with Miso, and so you talked about a robotic arm in your solution, and you told me at one point you had evaluated and tested many robotic arms out there on the market. And can you just share kind of that experience? What'd you learn? What are kind of both the positives and the kind of challenges that you face there?
Yeah. There are a number of companies in this world making robotic arms, and we were continually discouraged that we couldn't find any in kind of like this mid-market tweener application. There's plenty. If you want to, have a robotic arm operate in a surgical environment, you can find those. They're very slow, very precise, very expensive. If you want one that'll work in a automobile manufacturing facility, for sure, they're big, they're heavy, they're expensive, they're super fast. But there was this gap in the marketplace, and where an application like Miso's, which is kind of, it needs to work fast, it needs to be relatively precise, it can't be too expensive, and we need a ton of them.
Right.
It was really surprising that there was no looming, like it was some real compromises for us based on what we had to choose. And when you look at that, listeners may be surprised to hear, to learn that even though it's robotics, a lot of these arms are pretty old school. Like they're not that innovative new technology, and it kind of surprises people. Well, the truth is, a lot of these arms have been around for 10 or 20 years. They're die-cast aluminum, which is a very slow manufacturing process,
Mm-hmm.
really long lead times and a lot of capital.
Mm-hmm.
They all kind of commonly use similar componentry inside, also which I would argue is quite overpriced. And the software and the overall functionality, I can go on and on. The list is pretty long, but they're just not well suited for our application. And so we looked at it and said, with the technology today, the world can do better.
Yeah.
And thank goodness for Ally because we're onto something that isn't just one or two bullet points. When you look at a competitive, mix and go, hey, why would you
Yeah.
choose this and the other? It's damn compelling, Mitch, as you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. And so that's kind of some of the reasons why, we started Ally is it was really looking at there's these robotic arms that work for factory automation. They're designed for that application. And I remember talking with you, we had a lot of conversations of, well, restaurants is not a factory automation scenario. It's more we're trying to support this labor challenges gap, right? And so these things have to operate within a human type of environment. And there's intrinsic things like in a manufacturing line, you want this extreme precision out of
Yeah,
these robotic arms, and you will pay significantly for that.
yeah,
But when we compare that to, frying French fries, you don't need this plus or minus 0.01 millimeters of repeatability as one example. So why pay for that?
right.
And if the robotics industry has evolved over these last 40 years, why wouldn't we natively leverage that tech right directly in the box? So natively supporting ROS 2, natively supporting Move It 2, which Miso, you guys, that's what you use. That's your stack. So right now for these other robotic arms, you're having to develop all these extra interfaces just to integrate these industrial robotic arms versus something that natively supports it out of the box.
Yeah,
So,
and you're right on, and it's so surprising that the robotic arm industry has kind of been so complacent. Like there's just really been a lack of innovation in a lot of years, and so you're facing the same market opportunity we are, and it's way more greenfield than any other thing I've been a part of in a long time.
So there's one thing that I want to we've Allies had a lot of questions, and I want to get your take on this too. Is that we are Allies certainly building a robotic arm that fits the food automation scenario, but the market opportunity for us is significantly larger. What we say at Ally is restaurants are just the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So we've seen customers where they want, a robot arm natively mounted to an AMR, autonomous mobile robot, and go around and pick up chicken eggs because they're a free range farm, right? And these chicken lays them everywhere. We've talked to people that kind of also related to food is in a restaurant, you have these delivery robots. And so, you still need somebody to load the delivery robot. Well, if a restaurant's already gapped with labor, who's going to load the delivery robot in a, discrete time segment, right? So we could have this low cost robotic arm kind of do these other applications. And then you talked a lot about scale, and we've really looked at designing the robotic arm for the Ally arm for high volume manufacturing. So imagine if we're helping Miso with a robot arm on a rail that it's upright, ceiling mounted. If we take that same tech, invert it 180 degrees, put it in a service bay at a quick lube station, now we're helping with another very challenging market of the service industry. Nobody wants to be a grease monkey getting hot oil drained over them. Why not have this robot arm kind of, help facilitate that other type of that challenge there. So Miso invested in Ally Robotics. In that context, can you talk a little bit about the investment that Miso made into Ally and kind of why you made that?
Yeah, it was a long-term vision of having. When we take a look at Miso, said this is not about, hey, what are we going to do for the first quarter of 2023 or whatever. It was like long-term for us to succeed in our mission and solve the problem in this enormous industry at a large scale. We need a purpose-built arm.
Hmm.
It is, and we need a team that is super smart and dedicated exclusively to that. So it was not anything we ever thought about or considered doing in-house.
Hmm.
It was too much to kind of to birth. Um, you came along and we quickly fell into the realization that we shared the vision. We shared the identification of the opportunity, like
Yeah.
you're seeing it as I did,
Right.
the vision. And thankfully, you had the background, the content, and the contacts and the expertise to launch it. Because for us at Miso, we look at it as it's an imperative. Like we look at it, okay, what we're using right now is it's the best available in the market. Very, very limiting in terms of how quickly we can
Hmm.
scale. If I
Hmm.
had a surprise order tomorrow for 100 robotic arms, it would take months for us to be able to satisfy what we're doing and the software and all kinds of things. We just weren't set up for long term success. And so this is we looked at it as really a strategic imperative.
So Ally is working towards delivery on this first PO that Miso has provided Ally. So let's talk about that. How many units is that, and when do you want these, and is that soon enough?
It's not. But you share this with me, right? No matter what
Yes.
you're doing, you're late already.
Yeah.
You walk in the door and you're late. So,
Right.
because the whole world, we get calls like pretty much every call from every major brand starts and ends with, "Can you guys please hurry up?" And
Yep.
so we want to get started right off the bat with kind of the first 100, and we need three of those as soon as we can for testing and integration, acknowledging that the first three are going to be essentially handmade prototypes. I've got a team of engineers ready to write software for this to start integrating. So we're raring to go. What we're going to be doing then is we'll fall into buying in a pattern kind of as we do for a whole chain. It's public that White Castle has purchased 100. They're looking to buy more, as are others. And so we'll evolve into the Ally arm is our primary arm as soon as we can.
I definitely I work closely with a lot of the Miso engineers, and there's a lot of energy and excitement on bringing this Ally arm into the system. Things like no control box and significantly easier service, and the software team I know is excited because we're naturally supporting all of their tech stack. And I also see that with our other customers at Ally. They're interested in those exact same things. So from Ally's perspective, we really look at this partnership with Miso as an opportunity for us to build up our tech stack, scale, help provide a ton of value to Miso, and then go and service other type of industries at this large scale deployment for everyday automation. So when we talk about Flippy again, you have a current version that you're deploying and you're scaling with. What's next?
Yeah. Well, because there's a Flippy 2, spoiler alert, there's going to be a Flippy 3. like all technology products, there's this kind of rapid, steady, or constant like iteration of improvement,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and then every so many cycles, there's a large just threshold change of getting to a kind of a new platform. Flippy 3 will be a new platform for us. When I say platform, I mean the physical construct of the frame and kind of everything around it, including the arm, will be the subsequent generation. And so I don't have a specific date on that yet, but the designs are very exciting. With the Ally arm, it enables it's going to make life a lot easier. So for our service people, our installation people, our software people. But what it really does, it ushers in kind of this next generation of product for us. And like all technology products, you think about it, the next version is lighter, faster, smarter, often cheaper, more
Right.
reliable. So that's just kind of the nature of technology. So what we're working on now is going to take us from good to great.
That's amazing. That's incredible. So we're kind of pivoting beyond Miso. Where you're involved in talking with all of these different people across a lot of different industries, focused on restaurants for sure, but certainly other people talk to you about other type of automation and just robotics in general. Like, where do you see robotics really having some near-term success stories, and where do you see maybe the industry should maybe not focus as much, and how do you see that kind of evolving over time?
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast today, and it was all about AI and Chat
Mm,
GPT 4. And I'm thinking that's not that different from what's going to happen in the robotics industry. And kind of your question, Mitch, where this technology comes out and it's super interesting, kind of breakthrough, and maybe a little clumsy, a little kludgy, and then you kind of look at it and go, "This is going to change a lot of things."
yeah.
And then in the blink of an eye, it has changed a lot of things.
Right.
And we're in the forefront of the same kind of thing. When you imagine, an AMR
Yep.
robot with kind of self-learning and the ability to have its own computer vision and an arm like yours, which is just super flexible in its applications, then this wave of application
Mm,
and ideas and demand come at you where it's like, oh my gosh, there's such an abundance of opportunities of what you do with this technology. And so I've been doing this long enough to know that to see that the patterns kind of go from, kludgy or whatever to like then it's kind of working. It's really fast. Like before you know it, like there's robots in every restaurant. Your
right.
mail is delivered, your food's delivered by drones. Like all these things right now are you can see ahead and go, okay, I can't peg the date of the month and the year,
Yeah.
but you fast forward a couple of years, it's pretty sure how many things will change so substantially because of robotics, not just manufacturing, warehousing, but everyday life.
Some things that I've seen from my lens of the industry and world is there's this aspect of I go back to my days when I was programming my first website in 1999, and I used Microsoft Publisher, and as a WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get.
Yep. Yep.
And I hadn't learned computer programming at that time, but man, I could pull in a picture, drop it down. I made my first website and published that in 1999. And what I'm seeing, kind of building off what you're saying, is this barrier to entry, this level of friction to deploy these solutions is lowering. And so
Yeah.
when you lower that and it's less complex, more people can then start to understand, comprehend, and see that opportunity and start solving for that opportunity. So when you get these large language models that can program for you to take in what we're doing at Ally and just visually showing a robotic arm what the motion needs to be, and that's how you program it as one type of interface, these new and exciting opportunities for automation start to kind of unravel and unfold.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like two things working together. One is costs come down, and they kind of come
Yes.
down rapidly, and capabilities go up. And when those
Yes.
two things converge, then you have ubiquity. Then it's this technology just everywhere because why not?
Right. Right. So kind of the Uber question is, what are you most excited about the future? Like, what are you really looking forward to?
Yeah, it's important. It's You asked me that at an interesting time because we just kind of closed a big deal that is not yet made public and announced. But and so I've been so focused on that for so long to kind of get that thing to fruition. And I think a good reminder is the journey is a reward because along the way there's so many damn milestones and they're all important, but they're also all just one of many. We're going to be doing what we're doing here at Miso, God willing, just cranking away at the next big brand,
Mm.
the thousandth robot that's installed, the next product that we introduce and solve when we start really scaling internationally. It's really just going to be a heck of a ride, and I'm just going to do my best to enjoy all the steps.
Thank you, Mike, for your time. This has been a really great discussion. And, I heard something that is really important to me is you guys are doing the right things for scale. And I think that is going to be a differentiator and success. And you also shared that you're creating the V Next Flippy. So that's super exciting. I've seen a little bit of kind of the inside workings, and I'm
Yeah.
excited for you guys. It's amazing. Before we wrap up, are there any type of final thoughts that you might have for the audience that you'd like to take away from today's conversation?
No, I just want to stress how impressed I am with your team and how
Thank you.
fast you guys are moving. When I talk to other robotic CEOs and kind of look at their time cycles, like how it takes them to go from concept to production, you guys are doing big things and you're on to a breakthrough solution. I'm super psyched to be part of it.
Thank you, Mike. Really appreciate that comment. And we also enjoy very much working with Miso as well. So for the audience, you can find more out about Mike Bell and Miso Robotics at misorobotics.com. Mike, as always, really enjoy working with you, and it's been a pleasure having you on today's show. And thank you for your time.
Yeah,
and
thank
for everyone
you as well.
else.
No, thank you as well, Mitch. I appreciate it. It was a good discussion, and thank you for having me on.
Awesome. Thank you. Stay tuned, everyone else, for the next episode.